What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I did an impromptu mod that I've been wanting to do for quite some time on the XJ. I recently got 31s on the Jeep, and I was still rubbing fender and about ready to rip the fender flares off with some articulation. So I've always liked the styling and this look of the factory fender flares, so I wanted to keep them on. So what I did today is I cut the fenders up a little bit like most people do, and I also raised the mount for the factory fender flares. So stick around, check it out. This is a how-to. I haven't seen many people do it. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen nothing but maybe one, but they didn't look this good. So stick around, tell me what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. So removing your factory flares, you're going to find 5 or 6 studs on the back of your fender. If you do have a liner in it, you're probably going to have to remove a liner. I don't remember because I took my liner off quite a bit ago. You're going to want to hit these studs and nuts with some penetrating oil, or if you're going to be using new hardware, don't worry about penetrating oil because the factory studs are going to be cut off anyway. This is the part where I realized that I probably could have drilled my new holes above the pre-existing hardware before I even remove the mounts. Like I said, just drill new holes right above the old mounts. Now that you have your flares and flare mount off, go ahead and just trim the fender. It doesn't have to be perfect, so I got a rough cut with the cutting wheel, and then I went back with a sanding wheel to smooth it out. So I just ensured that I didn't have any sharp edges, didn't want to cut my tires up, and just prep it for a little bit of paint. You want to paint any exposed metal and paint your new holes as well. So here I just hit it with a little bit of black paint that I already had in the shop. Like I said before, just make sure you're covering any exposed metal, and try to cover up your new holes front and back. You don't want your shit box rusting any more than it already is. Alright, so I got these all cleaned up, and I drew a line just for visual purposes. You can see that there is a crease where this mount is not completely flat. It does have like a crease in the middle of it, and that's exactly where you want to cut. I did figure out that you are going to lose some strength where the tabs are on the front side and the back side, where it clips on to the actual fender. So what I did was I tried to cut down like I'm drawing here. I left that and bent it over just to try to keep some structural integrity, but it really didn't work. I did discover that you really don't need those tabs. So this was definitely a learning lesson. I cut off the studs from the existing clamps or mounts, whatever you want to call them, and I reused them. Honestly, it was just an experiment. So I cut those studs off of the clamps, and I was going to reuse them before I went out and spent any money on new hardware. which after I got it all done and cut, mounted, I am going to go back and change the hardware later on, just so it's a little more secure than some 23-year-old studs that I just used. So here I show you the studs that I cut off from the clamps, and I'm just going to repeat the process for the other mount. Alright, here I'm just going back over them with a sanding disc. Just clean them up and repaint them so they do not rust in the future. So here I hit it with some black paint real quick, just to cover up the bare metal. Alright, so here's the fun part. I just took some electrical tape and taped off the line where I wanted to cut. And as long as you can follow a tape line with your Dremel or grinder, you should be just fine. But I take pride in some of my detail work, so I made sure it was pretty accurate to follow along the original curvature. Then after I found a happy medium with my line, I just took my flex shaft Dremel and just scribed along the line. To get a good line, you don't have to cut all the way through on the first pass. So I made quite a few shallow passes and got a very clean line with that. So you see me here using a razor knife to finish off my my cuts. I had one disposable cutting wheel left, and once I start a project, I don't like going back to the hardware store if I don't have to. So I said screw it, we're just gonna heat up a razor blade and finish this cut, which worked out great. But if you have the cutting blades, use the cutting blades. So I got the cut finished, and you'll notice you'll get a little bit of, I don't even know what to call it, the melted plastic from your cutting. That stuff just comes right off. You see me just wiping it off. And then here you'll see I'm just going to take a razor blade and just get rid of some of that plastic that it's kind of melted, kind of sticking on there, but it comes right off. Just wanted to clean it up a little bit better, and just take a razor blade, go along the line, and it'll turn out good. Once you get it all cleaned up with a razor blade, just go back with some sandpaper, nothing too rough. I think I used some 120 grit and some 80 grit, and it worked perfect. If you do have painted flares like I do, make sure when you are sanding it to stick to that cut edge that you just trimmed off. Your paint should hold up pretty well. Mine did. So yeah, if your flares are painted, make sure you're careful on that edge with your sandpaper and your cutting. Alright, so we're mounting the first flare back on. I did put the mounts back on to the flare like it comes from the factory, and then I simply put my studs back through my new holes and began to tighten it up. After I got it mounted, I'm just hitting it with some more sandpaper real quick and finishing off the final sand and mount. So the trim line was a little bit of discolored black. So if you guys know the torch to the bumper trick where it restores your black finish, that's what I did there, just to blacken that line up. Here's the finished product for the front. Now that my experiment went as planned, I can go ahead and get 2 new front fenders and get this thing repainted. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, leave me a comment on YouTube, or reach out to me on Facebook. And I hope you learned something, and look forward to see your cut fender flares. Thanks for watching, guys.